Coming up on this episode of Hacking Astrology.
I made a post once about like why Mary Altman blocked me.
When I got on TikTok, I joined like a group of creators, and it just ended up exploding.
The sign in Gemini to me just existing has always meant that LGBTQ people will always exist. When you give the planets a stronger influence over you than you have over yourself, it becomes very hard to operate and direct your own life in your own way. Leo risings, like always identifying Leo risings by their hair, how it can be like racist. I think that especially as Venus and Capricorn, like we grow into ourselves over time.
Hey Jojo.
Hi Sean.
How's it going?
It's going good over here. How are you?
I'm good. I am interested to talk about the astrology of love, the astrology of gender, the astrology of sexuality, and I feel like it's good that we're both like queer or like in the LGBTQ community.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I do feel like that people will be more willing to listen to people who have experienced like it from a queer like point of view. So I'm excited to talk about all those subjects.
Yeah, I know, because like even just right off the bat, I feel like I have been kind of left out of the conversation in astrology sometimes, like when they talk about, because I identify as non-binary, so I kind of don't see myself as like man or woman. I see myself as like a person mostly. And so like pronouns, I go by like they, he, but I don't really care. It doesn't like, what people call me doesn't really determine me,
Got you.
But I just think that being someone who's like always been in like the middle of things, that like astrology doesn't really address that. Or even like, even looking at like a Vedic astrology, I feel like it's so like gendered and heteronormative.
And especially someone who I've been into astrology since I was a little kid, and like when I would go into libraries, I'd always go into the astrology section, and a lot of the books I'd find in those sections were all about like male and female compatibility, and like, so you're right, like I didn't know how to insert myself into certain scenarios when I was like reading books. And so astrology is one of those things where it's like it really depends on like, are you reading a book that was made years ago, or are you reading a more modern book? Because I think that a lot of the old astrology information is very heteronormative. I think we're going to get to a point where it becomes less, but definitely like what we have set for us already can be very heteronormative.
I think that's our job too. That's our role, to redefine astrology for the future. And, maybe that's what we're doing right now with the podcast, with any content that we post,
Yep. It's gonna be a big overarching theme with Pluto Aquarius too.
Yeah.
That will change a lot of the dynamics of astrology, I think, and just the astrology community in general.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, okay, we'll talk about that. But I just want to get you introduced. But
yeah,
I remember finding you on TikTok when I first got on astrology TikTok. This is when I wasn't creating. But honestly, you were actually one of the first people I followed and like actually liked.
Yeah, but you started literally a month before I did.
Okay.
And honestly, seeing how like fast you were able to grow your account like really inspired me to just like keep trying and keep going.
That's hilarious. It's like we were inspiring each other in the background.
Totally, you totally were, bro, because you were one of the first people I followed too. Like off the top of my head, you're like one of the first people I would think of, especially when I even just first started. And I didn't even know till a few months that we were mutuals, that we started literally around the same time.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. Because I started December of 2020.
Yeah, I started January 2021. So I started, yeah. like right after you, at the same time.
Yeah, like right after me. I knew it was like either right before or right after. Yeah, but around the same time.
It must have been a calling of some sort.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just gonna say, I remember just, I don't know, I just really liked your content, and then you eventually followed me, and I was like super flattered. I don't know. I feel like I deal with like
Really?
imposter syndrome a lot in my life,
I
and I
feel you on
constantly
that.
have to remind myself of my worth and my power. And I'm a
Really.
lot better at it now, but
Yeah.
um, no, I was just really flattered because I just respected you as a creator, I think. But
Thank you.
yeah, and I'm happy like you're on my podcast and we're
I
talking,
know.
and I don't know, so we could connect. But yeah, do you want to introduce yourself on your end?
Yeah, so my name is Jojo. I'll talk a little bit about how I got first introduced to astrology, because I was introduced to astrology by my grandmother when I was around 8 or 9, and I remember her saying to me like, "I'm a Capricorn," and I immediately like started bombarding her with like questions about what that means, and then I got to onto like researching about what my sign was, and I loved to draw as a kid. Like I was big into just drawing everything. And I remember I would make a lot of my art like all like zodiac sign based. So, and then I eventually just started going to the library when I was old enough, and I'd find the astrology section, and
How old?
I was probably 8, 9 or 10.
That's
Um
young.
it,
Astrology?
it it's it was young, but I can tell you that I have a whole Aquarius stellium in my ninth house, and this was all happening when my moon by progression was in Aquarius, going through my ninth. So I
Okay.
think that's really when I had like I feel like a planetary awakening, and that's when I was spending like hours in the library just like reading as much as I possibly could. And then I think when I was around 12, I started watching every video I could find on the internet. So the first, I believe the first people I started watching were Deborah Silverman, Alyssa Sharp, and the Peace Dealer. And these are all like people astrology YouTubers. So shout out to the OGs.
Yeah, it's so funny. Every episode I talk to someone, we talk about Alyssa.
Oh,
She's
Alyssa,
she's such a
she's our
defining
mom.
symbol for the community.
She's a mother, at least for the Pluto and Sag kids into astrology. Like she was our mother, and like um I was actually so first started like actively being involved in the astrology community in like 2015, because I started a Tumblr blog like impulsively,
Yeah.
and I was able to really blow up fast on Tumblr. And Tumblr was a little bit different because people were experimenting with pop astrology, which is what Alyssa kind of started and what she was doing
Mm-hmm.
on YouTube at the time. And
Yeah.
I was able to like get 10K followers on Tumblr. Um, and people would just like ask me anonymous questions. And then around the start of the COVID pandemic, I was searching for jobs, and in fall of 2020 I was working retail, and it was for like a distant family business of mine, and
All right. A vibe.
I I got asked to leave by the HR. Um
Oh no, not them firing you.
So yeah, they almost did. They said I was not improving, and that was like that. This was like a low point in my life because I really kind of felt like I really had no direction in life.
Uh-huh.
And this was at by the this my moon was progressed into Cancer, like 0 degrees when this happened. So it was like a whole family drama thing went down. So then in December of 2020. I decided to first started posting on TikTok. I did a TikTok about Charlie D'Amelio, and that video really took off. And
I literally don't watch Charlie D'Amelio at all, but I know she's extremely popular and this was requested. So she's a Sun Rahu person, which means her Sun and her North Node are conjunct. This is someone who can't really escape getting noticed even if she wanted to. And she's a Taurus Sun, so she's probably very beautiful.
thank the gods that I was able to grow my account from that one video. Um, and I was on a roll ever since that video up until like summer of 2021. I got into like a bad relationship, and I slowed down a lot with my creating content, and I haven't been able to grow significantly since then, but I like that now I have like a solid foundation to build off of.
Yeah. You have your community.
I do have my community, and I never thought it was possible for me to be doing like chart readings for money. So I'm just really thankful for the pandemic for pushing me to put myself out there in a way, because if the pandemic never happened, I don't know if I would have been on TikTok. And that sounds weird, but like that's the positivity I got out of the pandemic, was that's what pushed me to kind of get out there.
Yeah, I had like a similar story because it was the November before, it was after COVID, but it was the November before, it was the November of 2020, right before 2021. And I took a vacation to Florida to Anna Maria Island. It's like this nice coastal island beach, area. I got a condo for like a week, and like I stayed right by the beach, and I would just like go to the beach every day, and every day I would watch the sunset, and I would just like look at the sun as it set. And I feel like I had like a spiritual awakening around that time, and it was almost through TikTok, because I was finally bored enough that I downloaded TikTok. And then everything really resonated for me. I started on like spiritual TikTok, and you know how
Same,
like
me too.
spiritual TikTok's so chaotic. I feel like a year ago it was super chaotic.
I didn't know, like when I first started content, I didn't know where I wanted to go with my content. I was kind of just all over
Yeah,
the place, and then I kind of
same.
realized like you got to kind of just stick to what you're good at, and astrology was that for me. But did you go to that island by yourself?
Yeah, I do a
Damn.
lot of things alone.
I wish I had that amount of independence. That's very cancerizing too. I feel like you guys with Aries almost in the 10th, like you guys are very independent.
I mean, if I'm going to take a vacation, I'm going to take a vacation. And honestly, I'd rather
Yeah.
take a vacation alone at this point, because like I like to spend my time particularly. So I don't know. But anyway, about you, do you like being a TikTok creator? Do you, yeah.
I like being a TikTok creator. I've actually been on like a month long hiatus, and I think I'm gonna start posting again like in a few days. But um, it's it's something that I wasn't prepared necessarily to like go viral on TikTok and get a whole ass following. So in that, I wasn't aware of like how draining it can sometimes be. Like I sometimes feel like when I'm posting videos a lot, I just feel exposed almost, or you just feel a
Yeah,
little bit like, oh, like, it's just like you have those moments at night too where you're just like, oh my God, like my voice is all over TikTok. Like people
I
can look me up
know.
whenever they want. Like you start freaking out a little bit when you start thinking
Yeah,
about it. So I think that for me, it's adjusting to like just being seen. And, I'm a Leo North Node, so I know in a way I'm meant to put myself out there and to shine. It's not necessarily comfortable for me to be in the spotlight. Um, so I've just found myself needing to just take breaks, and just knowing that like I can be on my own time if I want, and I don't need to push out content if I feel like I'm getting drained. Like I definitely am learning to accept that like I'm Mars in the 10th house, so I do feel like I just gotta push when it comes to like where I'm trying to go and accomplishing things. But I know that like I also there's a lot of inner work I feel like I need to do, because I feel like if I'm not in a good place internally, that like I'm not going to be able to put out good content. Do you feel me on that?
absolutely. Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I only really create when I have that urge, that
Yeah.
creative urge, and it comes, and then I just like spam post. Like I usually
I
post
Dude,
like 10 in a
same.
row.
Yeah, same. I could disappear for a month, and then you might see 10 of my videos like one day, and I
Yeah.
like that. I love that you're the same way. I think it's very cancerizing too. It's just like you either feel it or you don't feel it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um okay, that's interesting. have how has your experience been on TikTok so far? Like, has it been mostly positive? Has it been negative? Like, have you had any run-ins with anybody? Like, anyone
I
calling you out or?
Yes, I mean, so I had this is kind of also I gained a bunch of like I gained following from this, so like it was something that I wasn't necessarily proud of, but like
Okay.
I made a post once about like why Mary Altman blocked me, and
I remember that post actually.
it was like I was just explaining like why I was blocked, and it just had to do with like I was commenting something about Uranus and Neptune, like because there's the whole debate about like modern rulership versus ancient rulership. But
Right.
I ended up getting blocked, and then I was just saying like I think when I made the post I was just saying I don't know if anyone else has experienced getting blocked by her, but this is why I was
I'm
blocked,
blocked by
and
her.
I was defending someone I really look up to because I think that she was just making some off comments about like I think astrologers that deserve respect because you know they're much older than us, and I think that it's just important that we look up to them in a way, and so I almost made the post like defending the other astrologer, and her followers ended up finding the video, and that's almost when I gained following from it, but I also gained haters. So
Mm.
that was right after I kind of started my TikTok too. So I had just almost thrown myself into the drama. And after that situation, I was just like, I've got enough taste of drama. Like I'm never posting anything that can cause drama again. Um, so
Yeah.
I feel like I just got like a taste of like drama on TikTok, like real fast. And ever since then, like I'm very guarded. Like I don't want to, I don't know, like I'm just more careful about what I post because I feel like when I first started my TikTok, I was just kind of experimenting with different videos and experimenting on like how I wanted to interact with the community. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I used to post like oppositional, like argumentative TikToks. Um
mhm,
because there's stuff that's lying out there that's wrong, and I felt like I would post a video to like call it out, but I feel like for me like that doesn't work. Like it's not very much my energy to like call someone
I
out
know.
and like critique them. It doesn't work with my energy. Like people don't like it. People don't like actually like it. People don't like respond to it, I feel, because it's just like
Yeah.
it's a TikTok thing, but is it like my thing?
Yeah.
Um, Wait, so like, how do you deal with like the hate on social media as a creator?
Honestly, like I don't usually ignore it. Like I'll usually comment back kind of sassy. Like even my sisters have like told me that they were looking through like my old TikToks and they found me in arguments. I'm like, I don't even remember those arguments, but like I'll defend myself, and I usually too it's just someone misinterpreting what I said, or it's a misunderstanding. Most of the time that's the case when I'm in a little bit of a fight on TikTok, but I honestly just feel like the best way to deal with it is just to defend yourself. Like you if
Yeah,
it's your platform, you know what I mean. And there's if you don't like what I mean, there's a bunch of different styles and ways you can do astrology. So I mean, if you don't like the way one person does astrology, there's always other astrologers you can find out there. So it really just comes down to like it's your individual platform, so you have the right to defend yourself. That's how I
yeah.
feel.
I need more of that energy.
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, no, I feel like I definitely am like encountering lots of lessons around like airy stuff, like standing up for yourself and
Yeah.
like defending yourself and understanding what your boundaries are. Like those are like a lot of lessons that I've been processing, and like social media has been pretty crazy. I mean, like, when I got on TikTok, I joined like a group of creators, and it just exploding and not
Yep.
resulting in a healthy ending of friendships. And there was also a lot of betrayal and backstabbing and like sneaky stuff going on in that group.
Very,
And
very
so like,
Very Saturn Aquarius. I can tell you that.
yeah. And I was very naive at that point because that's when I got on TikTok and I was just like trying to make friends and I thought people were nice. I didn't know it was like high school. Like, damn.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
um,
I think that TikTok is like the big clout thing right now. You know what I mean? Um, it's the fastest way to grow on social media right now. I believe would be TikTok, right?
yeah,
So
absolutely.
I wouldn't be surprised. Like, it doesn't surprise me that like there could be a lot of competition surrounding TikTok. Like, I'm seeing like I don't know if you know about tarot, but I'm seeing like wands, like a lot of wands energy, like very competitive. Because
Yeah,
it is a big clout platform. You know what I mean? But also
absolutely.
the astrology community is like in totality, it's big, but it's small in a way. I don't know if that makes
It's very
sense. Like
small.
it's big, but it's small. Like I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know
yeah,
how
yeah.
to.
I feel like
So
everyone knows each other, but there's like so many different pockets of like
thank you.
astrology groups and
Yeah,
communities, and
yeah,
like different like types of groups, if that makes sense. Like, I feel
yep,
like some people do like more older astrology, like I do more like modern mixed astrology. Some people, so it's like different pockets, different like
yeah, yeah.
families, I guess. But yeah, let's move on to asking you, like, as an astrologer, how do you use it in your life personally, and how did like your relationship grow over time with like using astrology? I know you were into astrology at a very young age.
hmm
um,
Um, so I think that like my knowledge of astrology's changed because, well, for one, I used to just be heavy into just the signs, and now that I've grown in my knowledge, I no longer just obsessively talk about the 12 signs. Like, I'm super into aspects, progressions, transits, synastry. And I went from talking about 12 signs on Tumblr to like diving into astrology in totality. But I think like one of my favorite things in astrology was to look at the charts of the people closest to me. But I think what I've discovered is like one of my favorite parts of astrology is progressions, because I love progressions because to me, they remind you that you're not stuck in your natal chart in a way. Like, progressions to me remind us that, while you may be conditioned a certain way, that we as humans are ever changing, we're ever evolving, and our needs change. And so I just really had found like this love of progressions for some reason. And for the most part, I use astrology to rationalize things, like air sign things. Like, I rationalize everything. And I once read something, and I forget where I saw this, but it was somebody talking about how people into astrology have a hint of like control freak in them. And I totally understand like where that person was coming from, because we're on a floating rock in the middle of space. So astrology gives you that little sense of control in a way. And for
Absolutely.
yeah, for me personally, like, astrology helps bring me routine, and it helps bring me structure. Like, using astrology can aid you in rituals, and it can, if you follow the moon cycles, it gives you this sense of structure. And I think that astrology is an Aquarian art. Like, Aquarius's ancient ruler is Saturn, and that's the planet of structure, limitation, and time. So I think that astrology is all time based, and for people concerned about time, like for someone who's like very obsessed with time, like me, I think that astrology gives you that basis of when to utilize things in a certain month or year. So Saturn is also the planet of fate. So, and then that gets you talking into like fate versus free will debate,
Right.
that comes with astrology. And to me, like, I always
Yeah.
believed that like your birth chart indicates areas of your life where your free will could be limited in a way. So whatever, if you have a planet in your chart with squares or oppositions, that can manifest, in my opinion, like less free will in regards to whatever that planet deals with. But I think that astrology itself, being an Aquarian thing, and Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, that astrology does concern structure, limitation, and time, and also fate in a way. Like Saturn is very fateful. So yeah, that's kind of just like what I like astrology, is mostly for the structure that it brings me and that little sense of control. But I don't know, what do you think about astrologers being control freaks? Because I definitely agreed with that statement in some way.
I definitely feel like some astrologers they want to grasp on the world. They want control or some kind of understanding, some kind of expectation of like the events, the energies that are coming up.
Yeah.
So I think that you have to have a healthy, balanced relationship with it. I think that if you're looking at situations like primarily through astrology, that's an issue, because if you're making decisions, this is my take. If you're making decisions based off just what the transit says, or like whatever your natal placement is, I don't think that you're making decisions in like a holistic way. Like you're not taking in the perspective of your current life. You're not taking into the perspective of what social environment you're in, what home you're in. And I think that another thing is that I feel like when transits present themselves to us, they are. I feel like astrologists have some sort of fate. It does have some sort of determinism, being that like natally you're assigned these placements. But what I do think is that based on the transits, the planets will express to you that lesson, but it's up to you to figure out what you do with that energy. And then, I always think about some people saying like, if you're going through a Pluto transit, a Saturn transit, like, can you hide from it? And actually, yeah, my friend was like, no, you'll probably get a text. Yeah, like, so it's interesting to think about like what that free will looks like. But I think that the free will lives in how you use these energies, how you respond to these challenges, because the
Yep.
square aspect is all about a lesson that's eventually going to be learned. It's pushing, it's forcing. So like a square is eventually going to happen, but it's like, how are you going to respond to that lesson? How are you going to respond to that challenge? And then I think, yeah, I don't know. It's a very complex conversation, isn't it?
It's one of the most tricky, I think, topics we're discussing, and I think that a lot of people like don't even have an answer. Like I didn't even know if I had an answer for that. Like I do believe that like it's almost a mix of the two, and that your free will may, like, you may feel like you have less free will in certain areas of your life. Um, but yeah,
Hmm.
it's a very it's like it's one of those things where it's like it might have an answer or it might not.
Yeah, right. And I mean, it's a reflection, and the chart is just a reflection, and so we do what we will with that reflection. And
Yep.
that's why astrology is a tool. I saw someone comment on my post today. It said, someone said astrology is evil. What do you think about that? I was like, well, astrology is a tool inherently. It's a neutral, so like it could be used for evil,
Yeah, of course it could.
and it could be used for good.
Just yeah, yeah, definitely. Just like any other tool.
Exactly. But yeah, anyway, so this is the Hacking Astrology podcast, and this is all
Course.
about deconstructing toxic astrology. And we just talked about a little bit about this before, but what do you think about the term toxic astrology, and how do you see that in your social media FYP or feeds?
So I think I didn't hear that term coined until this podcast, but I
Okay.
once I like understood what you meant by like toxic astrology. I definitely know what you're talking about now. But I think for me, like one of the things about like toxic astrology too is that I feel like sometimes toxic astrology can alienate you. I feel like, or this could also just be a misuse of astrology in general. But like when you like astrology gives you this sense of like being part of something that's way bigger than you, and you can start to hate small talk with people after you've learned so much about astrology, because you can feel disconnected from people who like don't understand astrology, and you
Right.
feel like you're on you feel like you're just on a certain wavelength, and it gives you this sense of making it almost harder to relate to people in a way. So like I guess toxic astrology is also like just never like making sure that you don't have like a sense of superiority, or a sense of like astrology alienating you from people. And obviously, like, I think that really toxic astrology would also be like claiming, which I think I talked a little bit about this with you already, is like claiming that you know more about someone than they know about themselves. And I saw one astrologer tweet something, and he said something like this, and I loved what he said. He said before he does his birth chart readings, he always says to the person, if anything I says doesn't resonate, don't take it, because you know yourself better than anyone. You're the one who lives with this chart. So if I say anything that doesn't resonate, don't take it, or take it with a grain of salt. And I loved kind of like what he was saying with that, because I think just the important thing to remember is that no matter how much you know about astrology, like you will never know someone more than they know themselves. And
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's just one of the toxic uses of astrology. But as far as like trending toxic astrology things, like
Yeah.
I totally have noticed myself like partaking in that, and not even like purposefully. Like the other day I posted, no, not the other day, it was like 2 months ago or something, or it was one of my most recent posts, and I was talking about like guessing people's rising signs. And like people in the
Mm.
comments were like, oh, like how do you guess like these certain rising signs? And there's one thing I said, I was saying, I was talking about like Leo risings, like always identifying Leo risings by their hair. Um, and then since then I've seen people of color, we're talking about that specific like trait about like Leo risings in the hair, and how it can be like racist and stuff like that. And for me, that was something I wasn't even conscious of, because I went to high school on a farm with not a lot of people, 90% white, but all my observations from like learning astrology came from like growing up and studying the people I knew. But like I come from a very like an all white town. Like I went to an all white high school, but when I was on Tumblr and like making my content and stuff, like a lot of that stuff was based off observations like I met from the people in my high school, which was not a lot of people of color. So it was something I'm not even conscious of. But now that people are talking about it more, I've become more conscious about it. And like I'm censoring myself, and I'm going back and like deleting posts that could be, considered offensive. I definitely don't think that people always need to be toxic, or I don't think that it's always intentional. But I really like that we're doing this, like you're doing this podcast, because it's definitely something that's gonna be need to address. It's gonna have to be addressed at some point. So
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
know what you
it's
think.
better to talk about, our faults, or even like where we could do better as like astrologers, like to be transparent about
Absolutely,
that, and to name it and to talk about it rather than just like not talk about it, which I feel like it's not talked
exactly.
about at all in the
I know.
community.
Yeah,
But no, I think that representation is important in astrology, and even like delineations like that include people of different races, just people who don't fit in like the norm of the world. And I feel like if
absolutely.
I came into astrology and I don't know if there was just some more like nuanced explanations for rising signs, um, then maybe I would feel a little bit more included. Maybe I would like respond to that concept. And then maybe even as an astrologer, I would like have a different take on like that. But I just, yeah, I think that there's like, it's also that I think like, you know, you being white is, thinking about myself, like as a person of color, like I'm bringing a different perspective to astrology than you're bringing a different perspective to astrology than me. And that's like the contrast of the world. But I do think that like, yeah, I think like more like astrologers of color need to like come to the front and like show your face.
Absolutely, absolutely, because
And yeah,
every everybody has their own unique vibrational signature, and especially astrologers. And I think that that's very needed. Like we need people of all different backgrounds, like talking about astrology and being involved in it if we're going to get it to a point where it is progressed. You know.
yeah, exactly. And I think that's how we can modernize astrology in like the new era. I mean, we're entering into a period where we're going to kind of define astrology for the future in some sort of manner. So,
Yeah,
um,
so some people would say that's Age of Aquarius, but that's also a controversial subject.
I know everyone's like, "Hey,
Some
uh,
people love it, some people hate it, so I don't know.
yeah, I mean, I used to love it because, Aquarius, like feeling superior,
Hey,
but
gang.
um,
It's
I'm
really,
like,
yeah,
I
I used
feel
to love
it, but like,
I used to love it too, but it's become something that's not even like that important to me. Like,
right.
I don't know. I guess it's very like biblical and stuff, and I just feel like maybe there's other things we should be focusing on, because whether or not it's the Age of Aquarius or it's not, like you're still living in this moment right now, and it doesn't really, like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter which age it is.
Moving on into the astrology of love, and that sort of thing. First, I want to ask you, what's your love life like, and like, what has it been like in your life growing up?
um, my love life has never been great, to be honest. And I don't think Capricorn Venus, like, of course I'll have to talk about my chart if you're asking me this, but like I think that especially as Venus and Capricorn, like, we grow into ourselves over time. But like my love life has definitely just been lessons up until this point. And if it's not that way for other people, good for you. But like for me, like all my relationships have been like big fat lessons. And I think in
Same.
a way I've like come to like realize about myself, because I have Pluto Sag in the seventh house, and that's almost like, if I don't surround myself with people who are going to teach me something or who aren't elevating me spiritually, like, I don't really need to be giving them that much attention, because I feel like I just need someone personally who's going to be able to teach me things, and who will also listen to what I have to say. But I think that I've been enticed by like very wild energy, and I've been enticed by like very just not the best kinds of people. But I think that I'm learning to become more wise when it comes to relationships. Like, that's my Sag in the seventh house. Like, I'm learning to become wise about who I attach to, because I've learned very harsh lessons about attachment because I have Pluto in the seventh. And I think that understanding my chart has helped me understand like why my love life has been a certain way. And being a Libra moon, like, a lot of my focus is on relationships in general. Like, but I think that everything in my life has been very cause and effect. And I think that for me as a Libra moon, like, accountability has been a huge thing for me. Uh, accountability is just a big thing for Libra moons in general, or especially if you're very seventh house, very relational. Uh, you'll manifest stuff that's very like, if you did this is the result of it. Or if you're going to give your attention to a very wild, chaotic person, you're going to pay the consequences for that. So I think that
Yeah.
I've learned to just become more wise about who I attach to. And my natal chart has definitely, I think, empowered me in the way where I know now that like I don't want to be with someone who can't teach me or elevate me. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, like how do you deal with that? Like how do you deal with the fact that you have like hard transits in love and then you're experiencing love and like how do you relate that to your understanding of love?
That's tough. Um, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure. I what I can say is I always believed that like I don't know if this is answering your question, but I always believed that like when it comes to like synastry and when it comes to composite charts, that the people that we fall deeply in love with help us to develop the, to develop in the areas that are very weak within us. So I think that relationships help you could help you transcend like weak areas of your own birth chart. Um, and that's just kind of how I feel about like two people coming together in love and kind of how that works with astrology. But I don't know. What was your question again? I don't know if I'm
No, because
answering it
it's
with
like I
that.
have Capricorn in the seventh house, you know?
All right.
So I have like that Saturn element in the seventh house.
Yeah.
And I have Uranus and Neptune in the seventh house. So like I definitely have like astrologically, you know, would have like a difficult time with like love, you
With
know?
love, yeah, or relations or
And
even
but
friends. Yeah.
yeah. And it's like someone new to astrology, like how do they process the idea that they have like quote unquote bad luck, you know, that they have bad karma, you know, like how can someone like come to terms with that in their mind to find like peace? I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, that's a tough question. And I think that also like comes down to, can we transcend our birth chart? Like a lot of people believe that you are very capable of transcending your birth chart with enough reflection and enough. But even if you sit down and and say you have a bunch of crazy shit happening in a certain house, and even if you sit down and you meditate for an hour on that area of your life, like you're still gonna get leveled by life. Like there's
Yeah.
almost like there's it's hard to explain, but it's like I don't know, like how do you like how if you saw like one area of life could, because stelliums to me are very karmic. So like say you have like you probably have a stellium in the seventh house. Like um I always saw that as like a very I would see that as like a very karmic area in someone's life. But how do I explain to someone a karmic area of their life in a way that's going to not
Right.
scare them? And I think that's what it comes down to. Like
Like, oh yeah, it's just stemming from a past life. Like, is that
yeah, and it's
helpful?
everyone always like said, yeah, goes back to
I,
like
I
past
say
life.
it. I say it. I say it
I
even
say it
now.
too. Yeah. Um,
um,
and karma, like some people don't believe in karma, but
right.
a lot of astrologers will tell you a stellium in one house, you have a lot of karma in that area. So I think that the best thing you can do is just learn about that house and kind of just how to embody the best of like what that house represents.
Yeah, I think it can work when you observe your placements. You know, have yeah, my seventh house placements, and then
Yep.
I'm looking at my life. Like, okay, do I experience this? I personally do. So like then I feel like I could definitely work with the energies, but I don't. But then again, I don't want to also like create an expectation of myself, like, oh, every next relationship, every relationship I'm gonna get into is
Yes.
gonna be a lesson, and it's like I guess that's difficult, you know, because it's like
It's and you know what you're talking about? I feel like you're talking about things becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy.
right, yeah,
Because
yeah,
I
it
think
gets to
that
that,
that's like really the main danger of like some of is in astrology would be like disempowerment in a way, because when you give the planets a stronger influence over you than you have over yourself, it becomes very hard to operate and direct your own life in your own way. Like I think that your birth chart if you give your birth chart an overwhelming amount of power over yourself, that's how astrology can disempower you. So it's also very important to just talk to astrologers who don't make you feel like you have no control over your own life or your own ability to direct your own life. Like, and a lot of people, there's a very popular quote. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it's like the stars incline, but they do not compel, or something like that. Um, it
Mm.
comes down to not giving your chart power over your own sense of internal authority, because astrology is a masculine thing because it's outside of you, and which can take you away from your inner sense of authority. um like an inner, I think I was talking about this with you too, like
Right.
having a sense of your own inner compass, and like astrology taking that away from you. Like, so
Right.
like never
Exactly.
don't give it too much power over you. Is basically how, like, that's what I think.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Um, do you find yourself using synastry a lot?
Not as much as I honestly enjoy just observing how my own chart. And synastry is not something I obsess over, if that makes sense. Like, it's never
Yeah.
been something I like. If I've been with someone for like a month, I definitely would like to look at the synastry and see kind of like if how accurate it is. And it's not something like, if I just
Right.
met you, I'm not going to pull up your synastry chart and try to analyze, because then that's just going to send me into a mental
Right.
maze. Then I'm just going to be over analyzing everything that happens in the connection. Like, I would rather let things play out naturally, and then maybe after a few months pass by, like, you can look at your synastry and maybe you can see if any events have happened that you can kind of see in the synastry, or if you mix with someone in a certain way. I think it's something that is fun to use after you kind of allow yourself to naturally connect with others. How do you feel about that?
I totally agree. That's exactly how I use it.
Yeah.
I when I start to get to know someone, I don't look at the synastry. And even with my best friend Sierra, like I think we looked at our synastry like once, like recently, and we've been friends for like several months for now. So like, and we're
That's
both into
great.
astrology. We talk about astrology all the time. So like, it's interesting. And then we found out that my Saturn is conjunct her moon at the same degree.
That always happens too. Like, you should, like, you're always gonna have some like dead connection to someone. Like, no coincidences.
Yeah,
But it's
exactly.
nice. It feels good to be surprised like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's astrology. It makes sense. It's reflecting what the situation is, so it definitely
I
would make sense.
I definitely, synastry and composite charts are, it's a good tool, but I definitely don't let it make your decisions for you. Like, let the connection play out naturally.
Yeah,
Because like I said, like, it can send you into a mental maze.
right.
Like, it's
Yeah,
very
exactly.
Aquarius. Like, it can just put you in your head. And
I
sometimes you
agree.
just got to be in your heart. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I definitely see a lot of people. I think some people definitely come to me with readings, saying like, just I guess like really problematic synastry readings. I won't give details, but like, that people I think they're coming to me with synastry readings and for the wrong reason. I don't know. It's very selfish, but like also like they're valid to do that, whatever they want with astrology and their life, So I respect that. But I don't know. I just think that yeah, you can get quite obsessive with it once you look at it, and then it kind of like can start to define the relationship, but you don't want it to define the relationship. It's still in the back of your
and
head, and
people are so defensive about their relationships too. Like, I'd be I don't offer synastry readings for people, but I feel like if I did, like, I would be very careful, because people are almost more defensive about their relationships than they are with just themselves. Like, relationships are so close to some people, that, like, if I pulled up someone's synastry chart and it's terrible, like, how am I gonna tell that person? like
Right.
when it's this is a connection that they value so much. And I think that's why I've shied away from synastry charts. Like I don't
Mm.
offer them. It's something I think I'd be good at. Especially even you, like you have a lot of seventh house. You may be good at that stuff. Like you may be good at synastry and composite charts, but um, people are very defensive about their relationships.
I agree. And I think like even that's how stereotypes get made, like stereotypes get made in toxic astrology when people start to use like their trauma from like past relationships, and that starts to define like a certain sign for them, like I know I dated
Absolutely.
a triple earth sign person,
Yep.
and that definitely got me thinking about Capricorns, about Virgos even more. And
Virgo risings. I think that's our mutual. Like we don't fuck with Virgo risings.
yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think that we definitely just have to like see situations for who they are, like for the behavior that humans show us, like we have to take note of that. And then we could look at the astrology, but like if someone is abusing us, if someone is hurting us, like we have the right to kind of let them go. Like F the
Absolutely. And
astrology.
yeah, and I think that the you weren't abused by a certain sign, you were abused by a person, and I've seen people say similar stuff like that when we're talking about like someone hating a certain sign because it was their ex. Like it is not the sign that's abusing you, it is the person. And I think that that's a big distinction you got to make when it comes to people having trauma from their relationships, and not letting it define everybody you meet with that placement. And it's what's funny too. Like I find myself in a very different energy when I go live on TikTok than when
Oh
I
yeah.
am doing a private reading, because when I go live on TikTok, I feel like I'm more human in a way because I'm just being myself, and as a regular human, like I have biases and I have certain like placements that like I've had experiences with where I just like don't trust a certain placement and stuff like that. But when it comes to a private reading, you have to go into a mode of being objective and like not putting your biases in the private readings. And I just find that my energy is very different when I'm live because I'll talk more about like some of the biases I have, and I might come across more offensive on my live. But when I'm in my doing private readings, your energy switches to just this mode of being as objective as possible, and not
Yeah.
letting not letting your concepts and evaluations of the signs like affect your private readings.
Right. Because I think we can still have fun with astrology. It's not like we have to make it so serious and strict. But I just think that like there's certain topics, certain things that we should, keep note of, and maybe stop investing energy into.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. And I have another question. What do you think about gender in astrology? Because, and we talked about this earlier, like, me identifying as like non-binary, and, how do I fit into like astrology? And, I think that like the topic comes about when we think about like people talk about Capricorn woman or Capricorn men or Aquarius woman or Aquarius men. And, they, kind of distinguish them as expressing those energies in different ways. So,
Yeah.
what do you think about that?
I think that it's funny too because I do think that there can be differences between like a male Cancer and a female Cancer. But would there be, if we hadn't grown up like with certain um gender constructs, like would there be a difference? Like I don't know, but since like there has been so many like gender constructs just like instilled in us, I think that that's why people notice differences between like say like a male Aquarius and a female Aquarius or whatever. I do think though that that you can see, I have always said, like, you can see the existence of LGBTQ people and people on a gender sexuality spectrum in astrology just because of how it plays out. Like I was talking about, Aries is Adam in like the Bible, and Taurus is Eve in the Bible, and then Gemini is the third sign, and Gemini is duality. Gemini is where if Aries is the man and Taurus is the woman, Gemini is like, I don't accept either gender constructs. Why would I take on a all masculine role or an all feminine role where I can do both? Like Gemini will multitask. Like Gemini will not accept either or take on both. And so the sign of Gemini, to me, just existing has always meant that LGBTQ people will always exist. Not that Gemini placements are LGBTQ, but that Gemini as a sign existing proves that like gender is a spectrum and sexuality is on a spectrum.
Yeah,
And that
there's a grayscale.
you can feel, there's a scale, and you can feel like even if you're biologically male or biologically female, you can feel equally both genders. That's just, to me, that's just like everything in life is duality. And I think that Gemini, the sign of Gemini, is symbolic of LGBTQ people existing, and that sexuality is ultimately a construct. You know what I mean? That's kind of just been all my view on like sexuality, and because I know a lot of astrologers too, like who are LGBTQ, like they resonate with Mercury a lot, because Mercury is that androgynous planet. Mercury is that planet that doesn't accept an all male role or an all female role. It will. Why would you do one when you can do both? Like that's how Gemini kind of thinks. So I think that in a way, like astrology does include LGBTQ people, but I don't think it's been discussed like that before. And I definitely think that all the information we have on astrology is very heteronormative, or it will only talk about men and women. But I think that astrology in itself isn't exactly heteronormative. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, so with the signs, they're energy archetypes at the end of the day. They're just certain like human energies that are super common. And so when we put like gender on top of that, to kind of frame it, we're putting a frame on it. I definitely think like there's like there can be a difference between how like a certain energy archetype is raised in a man gender role and a woman gender role. And then when I think about myself, like, I express myself more masculine, and I'm also I guess I'm not cis male. I have to Google that. I have to brush up on my Tumblr queer astrology term.
You're masculine presenting, you mean?
Yeah, like I guess I'm not cis because I'm non-binary, but like, yeah. So I understand that, and so like as an Aquarius or like as a Cancer / Taurus, like growing up raised as a man, I think that it could definitely come through, and it definitely like obviously shows through. That's what socialization is all about. But so I acknowledge that. But I don't really talk about that. Like, I don't really invest in like that type of binary type of rhetoric or discourse. I don't talk about signs like as men and women.
Yeah, like you don't. Yeah,
I just feel like it's limiting because there's Capricorns who don't identify as men and women. I just feel like it get kind of confusing and can affect people in different ways.
Yeah. Ultimately, talking about the sign is more what as we astrologers are meant to do than talking about gender. You know what I mean? We're more so just meant to talk about the signs.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, what is the balance of like astrology and like society and like social social influence, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
how much do we have to take into account social context when we do astrology?
I don't know, man. I think that
That's my
I think
Aquarius
that
Mercury in the 8th house, sorry.
yeah. It's like
No, I mean, I think,
I don't think I've learned fully the balance I'm supposed to have. Like, I think that as someone who has also Libra Capricorn energy, like I want to be socially appropriate. So I think that it's important for me to have like a conversation like this with you, so I
yeah,
can
yeah,
learn to be as socially appropriate as possible and to make people feel included. So, but exactly, like I don't know if I don't know what the balance is yet. I really don't. I think I'm learning. Um, and I think that with the Saturn Aquarius transit too, like I'm learning about the group. I'm learning about the larger community or people. Aquarius rules the outcasts. Like I'm learning about the outcasts and how to make them feel
you're right.
more included. So that's kind of how I feel. I think that a lot of the stuff we're talking about is very Saturn and Aquarius, because Saturn and Aquarius does have a lot to do with labels and social labels
Right.
and social behaviors. I think that everything we've talked about is very Saturn and Aquarius,
Yeah, absolutely.
because it's all about labels. It's all about labels, and ultimately that's why Aquarius rules astrology, because astrology will label you for you.
Yeah, it's very true. Very true.
I like that you're willing to to interview people who have done toxic astrology, like even if it was accidental, just because I like that you're just not villainizing. Like, say if like I'm doing toxic astrology, you're not gonna automatically like vilify me for that. That you're actually gonna hear me out on
Cancel
maybe like
you.
exactly. Like I don't want to be canceled, none of that. But like it's definitely something that like it's something that you're not always even like conscious of, like especially for someone who's been in the astrology community for so long. Like some of these concepts are just so ingrained in me that I can't even help it. You know where I'm what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, I definitely agree. And I just think that it's important to like show our perspectives, you know, like as
Hmm.
people who practice it, who do readings, who you know, and also have like a little edge with astrology. All right. Well, I think that kind of wraps up our conversation for this episode. Jojo, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. I think like I feel like we have like we're like almost on the same path or like in the same place in some sort of manner. Um,
Yeah,
when it comes to like developing like our like astrology, I guess like professionalism or just like understanding how we
totally.
want to
Like,
use it, you know?
yes, I think we've had similar struggles. So
Yeah. So, yeah, I appreciate your angle and your perspective, and thanks for coming on. And do you want to like plug your socials and any projects you might have coming up?
yes, yes. Well, my obviously my TikTok is Jojo Astrology. My Instagram is Welcome to the 11th House. And I think that's the main socials. My Tumblr is Disney Astrology. Um, and yeah, those are pretty much my main socials. And I'm gonna be start posting on TikTok soon again. So just look out for me.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, okay. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.